So at this particular point, I'm going to assume you have your Photoshop open and you have at least an image open for you to learn the process of separation with, because that is going to be our topic for this particular video. So like I said in the previous video, I talked about the process of separation. The essence of separating is we are going to take our image and divide it into two new layers. Then you're going to convert these two new layers into one into the color and the other into the texture. And so without further ado, what is the process? So before I get into doing it, this is a process. You're going to make two new copies of this image. Then you're going to rename one color, one layer as the color, then the other layer as the texture. So then you're going to go to the color layer and remove the texture by introducing a blur to that particular layer. Then we're going to go to the text layer and bring back the texture we took away from the color layer by doing what we call apply image. Then once we do that properly, we are going to have two new layers, and we are going to have one layer being the color and the other layer being the texture, such that if you turn off the texture, you're just left with a blurry color layer. If you turn off the color layer, you're left with an extra sharp texture layer. Okay, and that is the aim of our separation. So let's do this. So the first thing that you're supposed to do is to make new copies of this layer or of this image. So when you load your image in Photoshop, you're going to have the first layer being called the background is going to have a padlock here. Okay, so by default it is selected because you can see it is in gray. So what you need to do is to make two new copies of this layer by hitting Ctrl+J or Command+J. So I'm going to hit Ctrl+J once, first copy, Ctrl+J twice, second copy. So I'm going to come here and rename these layers. Like we said in the theory of frequency separation, we are going to have our texture on top of our color. Okay, the same way I have my texture on top of my color is the same way I'm going to arrange this particular layer. So the layer on top is going to be the texture. So double click on it and rename it to texture. Then the layer a bit below is going to be the color. So double click on it and call it color like that and press enter. So you're going to start with working on the color layer. And when working on the color layer, we normally turn off the texture layer. So I'm going to go to the eye next to the texture layer and turn it off. Okay. Now, what we have here are just new copies of the image. They're not color and texture only yet. So what we need to do is we need to introduce a blur to our color layer. By doing so, we are going to be taking away the texture from the color layer. So we are going to go to, with the color layer selected, go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. And now here, if you have never used this particular tool before, you're going to find yourself with a radius of 0.1, which is the smallest value possible. Then towards the other direction, you can go as high as you need to. So where do we stop? So I'm going to take that back to 0. Then I'm going to come to my preview window, and I'm going to reposition it such that I can see the eye of the subject, because around the eyes you're going to be having a lot of sharp details, like eyebrows, like eyelashes, and things like that. So once I have this positioned here, the goal is to drag this value up until we lose all the sharp details of the photo. And now, depending on the composition, this happens at a different radius. So let me start pulling this up. Let me go. That is a radius of 1. I can still see a lot of sharpness. That's 2.1. I can still see a lot of it. That is 4. I can still see a lot of it. 5. I can still see a lot of texture. I want to drag this radius until I cannot see any more skin texture. That is the idea. Okay, that's around 7. I can still see a bit of it. That is 8. I can still see about some texture. That is 9, almost heading to 10. I can still see some. That is 10. I can still see some, but you are getting towards where we should be getting to. And now that's 11. We are almost getting there, and I'm going to put a radius of 12. Okay, and now once I get to a radius of 12, if I zoom in, you can see I cannot see my eyebrows or eyelashes as single strands of hair, and when I go through the skin, I cannot see skin texture. I can just see bumpiness, and this bumpiness is in the color layer, and this is what I need to achieve. So once I do this, I'm going to hit OK. And now I have my color layer actually being a color, because if I turn it off, you can see we see the original image, but if I turn it on, you see a blurry color layer. If I zoom in, you can see. So that is with the color layer off, with the color layer on. So we have the color layer done right. The next step is the step at which we introduced a blur to the color layer is the step at which frequency separation occurs, because that's how we started separating our high frequency from our low frequency, because we said the color is our low frequency layer. So when you added a blur to the color layer, whatever we took away was going to become our high frequency layer, and that is the texture. So for us to bring what we took away from down here, the texture layer, we have to use what we call apply image, because we're going to be applying what we took from down here up here. So we turn on the texture layer like that, then select it, then you go to image, then apply image. So once we do that, you're going to get this new menu popping up, and you have to make a few changes here. So for the source, we are going to retain the same source as the image. Then for the layer, we are going to pick the color layer, because it is from the color layer that we are getting our texture. Remember, we said when we added a blur to the color layer, we took away the texture. So you want to apply whatever you took away from the color layer onto this layer. That's why we pick the layer, the color as the color layer. You're going to leave RGB channel as is, do not invert. Then when you come down here to blending, we are going to change the blending mode from multiply to subtract, because we want to take away what is what was down there and bring it up here. That's why we take the blending mode of subtract. So I'm going to come here and pick subtract, and we should put an offset of 2 and a scale of 2 and an offset of 128. And now you can see whatever we are removing previously, our texture and our sharpness is what you can see in grayscale, and we are good to go. So hit OK. So once you do that, come and change the blending mode of the texture layer from normal to linear light to have your image appearing as normal again. And now if I zoom out the image, oh no, sorry, linear light. Yes, now if I turn off the texture layer, what happens? We have a blurry image. If I turn off the color layer, we have an extra sharp image. So we're going to go a step further and create backup layers, so that in case we mess on any of these layers, we don't have to go back again and do the separation again and start from scratch. So what I'm going to do is make a new copy of the texture and make a new copy of the color copy. So let's start with the texture. I'm going to hit Ctrl+J like that. So then I'm going to get a new layer. Then I'm going to click this layer, the layer below it. By clicking, it means that whatever changes I do to the layer on top, it affects the layer below, the layer directly below, and not any other. So I'm going to hit Alt, bring it in between the two, and click once. Then I'm going to go to the texture copy layer and change the blending mode back from linear light to normal like that. Then I'm going to go to color and do the same, Ctrl+J like that. Then press my Alt, clip. But for the color layer, we did not change any blending mode. Then I'm going to select all the new layers from the texture copy, the texture, the color copy, and the color. And I'm going to hit Ctrl+G to put them in a group. And now I'm going to rename the group as FS like that. And I'm going to expand the group downwards. And I'm going to turn off the texture group like that. And I'm going to select the color copy. And now I'm ready to get into mixing. So that is the process of separation. We start with one layer, remove the color from it, then remove the texture from the color, bring back the texture, and a combination of the two is going to give us back the original image. That is how we separate. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the power of the radius and how does the radius change when we move from editing a close-up photo like this one to editing a full body photo. So see you around. The name is Simon Chege, and this is my frequency separation masterclass.